So, hi, Henry.
Hi, Madhura. Nice to see you
Yeah, nice to
finally.
see you as well. Yeah, this was so long due, and I'm glad we're finally able to do this. Um, and I feel like there's like something has to come together to for these things to happen, no? Even
Yeah,
though we're
it's a good beginning with a good new year also.
yes,
So I think that's
yes,
yeah.
yes, that's true. Yeah, yeah. So, I just wanted to share why I'm doing this because I just felt like this idea came to me a couple of months ago when I thought about the conversations I've had with friends over the years and how much it has changed my life and how it's had an impact on who I am. So, it's really, and these are very precious connections that I have with people. So then I just sort of, and there are so many people that have touched my life. But I just started sifting through, and the first few names that popped up, I wrote to a bunch of you, and I said, okay, let's start this, get this going. So I thought I'd reach out to you because you've been a significant friend since 2015.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, so
2000, so many years ago.
I
Wow.
know. So now we're meeting here. Where I'm joining from Taiwan, and you are joining from Sweden, and we are going to have a conversation.
Yeah, and it's almost as cold at your place as it in my place in the south of Sweden. Ooh.
Yes. Oh, well, you said it's -12.
Yeah,
It's plus
approximately.
12 here. So,
Okay. Hmm. Plus minus.
but we don't have central heating. So,
Oh.
yeah, so that's a huge. I don't know if you can hear the wind. I've had to like draft proof the windows because it can get really windy and the wind chill
Oh.
is like it can give you a headache,
Oh my
which is why I'm
goodness.
dressed in this.
Fancy,
Yeah.
fancy.
Yeah, I know. I look fancy with a hoodie and
Yes, you
everything.
do. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good
So,
idea that you brought
yeah.
this up with this conversation. And as you said,
Yeah.
we've been friends since 2015, and it's
We're really good friends. I mean, we've been connected for
mm,
so many years. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and then we have also been able to catch up with them. I mean, we've been
Yes.
quiet for some months and then catching up, and I think that is also a good proof that it's a good friend relation.
Yes. Yes, I completely agree with you. And I think that's why maybe that's the first thing I'd like to talk to you about because I think in my adult friendships that I formed later in the later years, you are one of those significant friends that I met where I've learned so much without feeling like I'm being taught or I'm being like, like I just sort of
Ah,
picked up just by power of association.
mm,
So, and you just said that. You just said how we've been able to maintain this friendship for so many years. We come back to each other, we talk, we meet. And even when you were living in Bangalore, we would meet and whenever we could, and we had that connection. Maybe you can say a little bit about the Cubbon Park walk. And it was always your idea, and now I'm just like totally sold.
we were watching trees, but not only watching trees, we were hugging them
Yes.
as creatures or whatever people would like to call them. But it's so if you really stand for a long time together with a tree, and as we did, as far as I remember, we only did not. It's kind of not focusing on the tree. It's like embracing it, not only also with your physical hands, but also with your senses, and for all the ones who subscribes on the idea of energy, prana, it's like also
Yeah.
embracing the tree with your prana or life force or whatever. And not only that, also let the tree come to you. And that's, I don't, That's what we were doing sometimes, and the trees in the Covent Park are amazing.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. But I don't know if you remember this because you talked
Mm,
about the embracing part, which is also
mm,
very powerful, which we did. You did one particular meditation with me once. We
mm-hmm.
were sitting, I remember you got a box of hazelnuts and something else, like a bunch of like walnuts and just for like a snack.
Yeah.
We're sitting there and you said, "Do you see that tree?" And I said, "Yes." And you said, "You see that tree? Do you see how the stem is, how it stands?"
Mm.
And you said, "You see, now when you look at the tree, can you feel how deep the roots go?"
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep, yep.
And
And
it's
you could.
yes, that was a visual meditation, and it had never been like mirrored to me or shown in that way. It was very fresh introduction for me because I could feel
Mm,
it. So I connected with the tree because you
mm,
taught me how to do that, even though I've always loved nature and all of that. But this was a very intentional uh, connection that you unlocked for me.
mm,
And you said, how far the roots go, and then and you talked about the branches, and of course you said something about how your tree never wishes it would be different.
mm,
So there was the grounding, and there was also this witnessing and agreeing to what is as it is,
mm.
however it is.
Yeah.
And and at the time, the phase of life I was, that very liminal space that I was moving through,
Mm.
that's exactly what I needed.
Yeah, and I mean, for those who are seeing this, you don't need any particular gifts. We already have all the gifts, and as you said, unlocking is like someone is pointing at something. Can you see or um, sense it? And you are like opening
Mm,
up to actually, how can I sense anything like you did? So it's like anyone can do it,
yeah,
and but and not everyone wants to. But I guess it was time for you
yeah,
at that time, and it was so. I was just sitting there and yes, it's so beautiful to see when because your whole appearance changed when you realized that, oh my goodness, I can get a deeper connection.
yeah,
Re Unveiling, is that a word? Yeah.
yeah, like unveiling,
Yeah.
removing the veil. Yeah,
Yeah, for yourself and
yeah,
oh my goodness.
yeah.
And that also makes me remember the first time we met.
Mm. What do you remember?
Oh, you were especially we were participating in a course for pendulum.
Yeah,
If
it
you
was
don't know
like an
what it is,
energy workshop. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And I didn't realize it was your mother you were sitting next to, but
Mm,
eventually when I realized it, because I hadn't been in Bangalore for such a long time, so I
yeah,
hadn't realized how pretty much close parents are to their daughters, especially their daughters. So I was amazed when oh, what? Because it doesn't happen so often here in Sweden that
mm,
parents and children are going to the same course. So it was amazing to see. Wow, and it seemed like you had a very different connection to each other,
mm-hmm.
and especially that she also was very open to what we were doing.
Yeah.
So that was the first wow. And then we worked together during that time within the
Yes.
we did some exercise, and I'm not, you have to help me to remember
Mm,
what I told you, because I could sense something when I was doing this pendulum with you,
yes.
but I don't remember. You have to help me there.
Yeah. So that was what happened was when we paired up, you did
mm,
something and something showed up, and I said, there's someone in my life where I feel like there's this sort of very like unhealthy sort of bond, and I didn't know how to free myself from it from this bond.
mm,
Um, and it was very powerful. You did something. Of course, you used the modality we were practicing, but you did
mm.
something else which was very deep. I think you did some sort of a card cutting, and you could really tap in and sense into the field. I only learned about the morphogenetic field of resonance like after I joined systemic training,
Mm,
constellation
mm,
work and everything. But before that, I didn't even
mm,
like I was never introduced to that, even though I've heard of it. I just never experienced
mm.
it that way. So the way you tapped in was quite amazing. Something happened.
Yep. And I you said that I was cutting cord, but that is the fact is that you were cutting the cord because I was asking you to do that.
Yes.
So, and it's like this, and you made it, and also again you were ready for that, and you were willing to let go.
Yeah.
So it's like again your whole appearance shifted, and you went from I slowly start to remember now because if I remember correctly, you were kind of in a moody blues down.
Yeah. Yeah.
The energy
Yeah.
was like quite
Yes.
low, but after for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it's like, who is that girl? Like so such a profound shifting in your energy state, and that was, and I think even your mother could see it.
Mm, yeah.
So that was,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I'd be glad to report because it really worked in the coming weeks and months.
Mm,
It's not so much about the other person, right? It was about the process within me and what was
yeah.
holding on, and how it's not about blame or saying somebody is bad or I'm bad, or the connection was toxic. It was
Mm,
not working. So I can see it now. And so something happened, and there was such a shift that I moved in a different direction. And there was
mm,
freedom. There was freedom for me after that. But I also
mm,
remember, I think after that practice session, we had a lunch break.
yep.
And then
Mm,
we sat down and we chatted even during the lunch break.
yes. Correct. Correct.
That was so amazing because when I spoke to you, I heard
Mm,
myself saying things which I never said aloud. I
yeah.
remember because I spoke about transgenerational trauma and intergenerational trauma, and I gave you a
Mm,
little bit of, why I'm curious because I've heard stories in my mother's line what happened when they, they didn't migrate too far, too long, too far
mm,
from where we are now based,
mm,
but the circumstances were really tragic.
mm,
Few generations removed. So
mm,
even she has heard the stories, but they don't know for sure. So this sort
mm,
of breaking down of even like the forgetting of what has happened, and also this vague remembrance of exclusions and leaving behind and loss. And when I said that, you seemed so interested, and we just sort of like immediately clicked.
yep.
Yeah. Uh,
Definitely.
and uh, and I think soon after that I left to the US, and we didn't keep in touch for a year.
No, correct. It's like she left me here all alone in Bangalore.
No, but I
No.
was amazed when I came back how quickly we got back in in
Yeah.
touch, and we became, we would just like yeah, I remember how effortless that was.
Yep. I want to reflect back on what you said about toxic relations. It's like, for me at least, it's those are the ones that has showed me what do you need to change
Mm,
as a person? What do I need to change
yeah.
as a person if I don't want to be in a toxic relation or and the relation could be with a parent or a colleague or a friendship or a partner. So it's so obvious for me now that it's all up to me.
Yeah.
And that's also, it's the worst part of it, because if you know that, if I know that I have a choice,
Mm.
before I know that I have a choice, I have no choice, but then I have a choice, and then I need to make a choice,
Mm.
and that's then I can't blame anyone else. Of course, a person can be a part of my journey, and a person can be mean, but again, I can still have a choice. It's But I haven't come so far as some people say that, oh, you can detach yourself from whatever happens. No, I haven't come that far, but at
Mm.
least be able to reflect on it afterwards, at least. Maybe
Okay.
sometimes during a conflict, but not so
Yeah.
often.
Yeah, but you said something so interesting, Henry, because you said
Mm,
we realize we have a choice. When you say,
mm,
okay, so what happens within me in relation to someone, then I
mm.
am taking responsibility for myself.
Right.
Yes. However, you can't take blame for yourself.
Mm,
And realizing you have a choice is very different from getting to a point where you can really exercise the choice, because what's happening with the body, what comes up for you, what memory has woken up, and what is calling for your attention. If that is not seen and held and integrated, then
mm,
really how do we get to, so getting to the choice is also, I feel, a journey.
mm,
uh, uh, because it's a journey, isn't
mm,
it? And quite often it doesn't come through detachment, as we know. It's
mm,
quite the
mm.
opposite, right? It's
Exactly.
getting more and more in connection with ourselves, which
Mm,
I've seen you do so authentically. And you've seen me do that, because that's
yeah.
the only way is through. It's not,
Mm,
and it's okay. And it's sometimes when we do detach, we do because everything is serving a purpose for us in the moment.
yeah.
And that's fine. So
Yeah.
it's interesting you said both. You said taking responsibility
Mm,
and knowing that you have the choice. And sometimes also, I feel like this whole being detached is such a lofty ideal, right? Isn't it? Because
mm.
I feel like before we get there, it is to find connection with ourselves that was disconnected for whatever reason. And why do we disconnect? We disconnect because it's too painful.
Exactly. And you said the blaming ourselves
Mm.
is. Would you consider that as like the whipping yourself with
Of
the
course. I mean, that isn't
yeah.
that the classic example? Self-flagellation. I mean, that's just I put it very gently and you just gave it. But isn't it true? Um,
Yeah.
because I think the other extreme is that my teacher Gabor Mate says, he says, responsibility is our ability to respond in the present.
Mm,
It's
mm,
not taking on blame for what has happened to you or blaming someone else for what they did
mm,
to you.
mm.
But when you are able to respond in a way in the present, and that's a journey, isn't it? Because there is
Oh,
a
yeah.
somatic process involved, as you know very well in your work.
Mm,
Maybe now I can mention that you are a Qigong practitioner and instructor, a trained Qigong practitioner, and you are
mm,
also you've been training in other modalities and a practitioner in many, because for me, I can see you tap into the energy work like so effortlessly. So would you like to share a bit about what you trained in, apart from your day
Mm,
job, which is another thing. So you can also talk
that's
about that.
totally different.
Not
Yeah,
so
that's
much. It's, it's putting out fires, preventing fires.
and external fires.
Yes, external fires.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been a Qigong teacher since 2007 on my spare time, and been conducting classes for in the evenings mostly for the broader public, so to speak. And every year I've been on further education together with it's called the Qigong Academy in Stockholm.
Mm.
So, it's well, some people sometimes say, well, you never get, don't you never get fully learned about Qigong? Well, not in the way they teach, because it's a couple,
Mm.
and their mission is to never stop learning.
Mm.
And it's sometimes it's quite frustrating to come to the classes, because there's always something new, new. But that's the mind talking when I'm saying that, because on the other hand, if what I say is, if you want to get further ahead in your life, expand your energy, what do you say, your energy field, your ability to sense energy, to live more with your emotions without getting trapped within them, um, be more alive. You need to distract the ego. You need to make the ego go, what the f is happening? And that's why they put in new things all the time
Mm.
within the practice. Well, there is a program, three
Mm.
different programs, but exercises around them. It's that's why sometimes I'm getting so tired of this. But again, that's the ego. And on the other hand, I'm expanding my
Mm.
practice. That's both my practice. I mean, I haven't been sick for many years, maybe one or two times since 2007.
Mm.
And also my ability to be a good Qigong teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
I practiced Reiki, but that was also, I started with that 2007, but I have kind of integrated that with the Qigong, because
Yeah.
at the end, everything is
Yes.
one source.
That's so true. I have two questions. So
Mm,
maybe I'll go to the first one, and then first one that comes up for me is when you speak about the ego. It's very interesting. Um, because now you're from Sweden and you've also lived in India for a while and you've had the time to sort of experience different cultures. How strong is the ego in your culture in Sweden and maybe in Europe, and is it the same? Have you encountered and experienced ego in the same way in people in India?
oh, that was a good question. It depends on how you define ego.
Mm.
I don't know if it's the ego or
Yeah.
or if it's the cultural thing.
Mhm.
I'll like give an explanation, and if
Yeah.
it's here in Sweden, you are taught to so to say, be able to be independent. Period. You have to make it on your own, and maybe the culture evolve makes the ego to evolve, because that also makes you a little bit more egotistical.
Mm.
You do it your own way.
Mm.
You develop your own sense of what is right and wrong, and not you most people don't want to be dependent on other people.
Mm. Mm.
I leave it that with the Swedish, or well, from
Mm.
the Swedish perspective,
Mm.
just leave it. And going to India and Bangalore, it's like it's the, what I've seen, at least my experience is that you kind of, and it's this maybe to exaggerate, but you won't survive in if you don't or if you are totally independent in India, you might not survive at the end if you get sick or unemployed, or for whatever reason you make yourself independent,
Mm.
or if you are your family don't want to
Yeah.
talk for you with you for some reason, and so compared to you in India, the family is everything. And it's a difficult question
Mm.
to answer,
Yeah.
because the more I talk about it, the more culture thing it is. But on the other hand, I think the culture, as I said earlier, it forms the ego,
Mm.
and because I'm touching my heart center, because that was like the almost 4 years I was in India. I have never ever felt so many people being close to their hearts and expressing from their hearts, or just being in their hearts.
Mm.
And how do you know that? Well, I could sense it.
Yeah.
It's because, and the you can see it in people's eyes, what they say, how they handle, how they take care of each other. And that's what I
Mm.
saw in
Yeah.
India so much, even in the most low income areas. It was like, because I visited those places a couple of times,
Yeah.
and
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 you
it's
did
like,
volunteer work.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's touched me
Mm.
so much, so many times, and
Mm.
tears coming up, and goosebumps, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so I from I maybe less ego in at least there in Bangalore, because that's what that's where I
Yeah.
lived. So I can't talk about India in general, but
No, it's interesting you say that because I feel like the term when you say ego, it's multi-layered, right? You talk about are you talking about
mm,
ego as a personality, as an
mm,
identity, ego as the intellect versus the heart, which you gave me a very good example of how, in your part of the world, the ego plays in the way where it's more individualistic and people think
mm,
more from the head, and it's more
mm,
like, it's this it's more an individualistic way of living, and in India it's a
mm.
collective ego. So you see, there's a
Yes.
binds and bonds of a system. The pull is
Mm,
stronger as a
mm,
collective,
mm.
and it's not probably so much for you in Sweden. uh, it's different in Sweden.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
you think you wrapped it up in a nice package there.
Yeah, it's just I found it so interesting that you described this aspect of the ego because it
Mm,
really shows the difference. Uh, and also, I can see how much it touched you to be in India. Uh, you know, um, uh, Part of this also is that because in Sweden the culture is that I think, I mean, I've not experienced many Swedish people. You are, the closest friend I have from Sweden. But, when you say yes, you mean yes. And when you say no, you mean no. But in India, very often we have this culture of maybe. There's yes and no, and there's maybe, and
Mm.
there's hardly a no because people are so uncomfortable with saying no. They'll just be like maybe, and then they don't show up, and then there's a lot of like that. So I was just wondering, like, if you would like to share a little bit of how that was for you in the beginning, and uh, how did you let that change you in your 4 years in India?
Um, yeah, and this
Hmm.
I think it goes hand in hand a little bit with all the paperwork you need to do
Yeah,
if you
sorry, I'm
come
just
if you
moving the curtain. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it goes along with the paperwork
yeah,
that I need to do as when applying for a visa or something. Then you come to the administrator at the immigration office, and you have read on the internet you need to bring this and this and this and this and this. So fine, good. You think that everything is okay when you printed out the wallpaper, you have done everything, you come there, you have all the papers and think you're ready to apply. Here you are. And they look at you and say, we're missing this document.
yeah.
It's not what? And you go home, and where do you find it? You find it on the internet and on the another site you find it. Okay, print it out, you go back the second day. Oh, and we missed this one. And you can keep on going and do that and
Yeah,
do that and do that and do that.
yeah,
I guess you're very familiar with that,
yeah,
but
yeah,
as a Europe, at least in Sweden,
yeah,
what you see on the internet from the official
yeah,
authority, that's most often everything you need. So that was quite frustrating
yeah,
with the cultural clashes. That yeah,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
I was asking, I think I even asked you, but many of the people I know in India,
yeah.
how do you put up with this? How is it possible that how, you, I mean, you have to take days off from work to get the paper
Yeah,
from the government. Yeah, yeah, that's the way it is.
yeah,
And people like, "Hmm,
yeah,
it's like, so
yeah,
that taught me not only this, but a lot of things. That it taught me patience.
yeah,
Patience,
yeah,
relax,
yeah, yeah.
inhale, exhale.
Because what do you do if you have no choice? What do you do if you have no power in the situation?
Mm,
And I can see why India is that way, because we are a relatively young country and we still haven't
mm,
healed from the collective trauma of being colonized. And we're such a young, 75 years is not too long.
no.
And what you said is so interesting because you say you build patience because it's that resilience is the only thing that will keep you going in this organism called India.
Mm,
Right? Because what else can you do? You figure it out. If it doesn't, and I think it's more so with, I think with like bureaucracy stuff like that can get really
mm,
tedious because the systems are in place are also so old, which I feel like will take some time, which is so interesting because it is exhausting. However, I think when it comes to, especially with embassies in specific countries, if they don't have a heavy footfall from that country, too many visitors, they just don't figure things out. They just leave it,
mm,
which
mm,
is so
mm,
similar in Taiwan, Henry. I can't tell
mm,
you because what you can see, what could have been a two-line information in
mm.
I have to go twice to the immigration office, and it's really in the worst part of the town. And I mean, the whole thing is just it's like super triggering for me. And they'll just say, "Oh, you'll have to come back, and get this letter,"
Ah,
and.
yeah.
So I was just like, "Why can't you figure it out?" Then I was like, "Well, I'm from India, so I should be used to this."
Yeah, exactly. Oh, this
Yeah.
reminds me about home.
Yeah. But isn't that interesting? Because it's the same kind of ambiguity and I don't know, we'll figure this out. Oh, this is how it is. Attitude that we have in India is
Mm,
also something that gives us a lot of flexibility and resistance to just tolerate a lot of things, don't you think? Like we just tolerate a lot.
Yes, it does,
Yeah,
because um, there are. I'm now talking a little bit general in
yeah.
general. For example, now that we have had in here in Sweden, the southern part of Sweden, it rarely snows, for example.
Mhm.
Now has come a lot, and it has come a lot, and it
Mhm.
has also the minus 10, 15 degrees, and this is a very unusual event here in Skåne. And people are getting so frustrated, and they, what's the word? Whine.
Mm,
They
mm,
whine so much about it. Oh, it's a disaster, and why don't the authorities take the responsibility? And there's
mm.
such a much a blame game. Of course, there are many trucks and cars stuck at a highway for almost a day. But it's like so, and compared to Bangalore, where you get massive rainfall and there are floods overall everywhere, and I thought this would be in Sweden, it would be the same. It's kind of the same, but here people just they're still driving the cars and they walk along the paths and give it a couple of hours and the water is gone. And it is also,
Yeah,
and people have got water in their basements, and it's flooding everywhere, but it happens. And it falls, gets away, and the rain will get mm, the, the water on the ground will move away. So what's the problem? So I think it's the mindset is
yeah,
totally different,
different.
because here in Sweden, I think, yeah, we are taken care of here in Sweden.
Mm,
You there are so many things that you get for free from the government, so people
mm,
have gotten so used to it. Money to get when you're sick, money when you get a baby,
yeah,
when you are so many free things, school and childcare and whatever. And that's not the case in India. You have to take care of
yeah,
yourself. You
yeah,
have to be the closest is to yourself,
yeah,
and that's a huge difference. So
yeah,
that makes your that I think that's why it's not such a huge resilience in India.
yeah, yeah.
You
That's
have to take
and
care of
also
yourself.
that's that and also isn't that one of the reasons why families do end up showing up for each other, no matter how
Yes.
dysfunctional the family shows up, because the government, we don't have the government system that Sweden has. You know, you have high
Mm,
taxes, but the government will
mm,
make sure that you have health care, that you have, you know,
mm,
even if you took a break from work,
mm,
you have reasonable housing. If
mm.
the government is doing all of that, then there's lesser incentive, I think, to gather together as families, or to really sort of, here in India, even if we may have skirmishes or disagreements, or complex family relationships.
You
we
say.
just yeah we just seem to somehow find our way back to each other and sort of hold on in some way.
Mm,
Because I was just thinking, when I was in the US, the kind of homelessness that I saw there,
mm,
Henry, you've been in Bangalore. I know I'm
mm,
not, even I haven't seen all of India and I don't know how it is, but generally in all the big major cities that I have lived in India, visited, I have never seen that kind of homelessness, the kind I
uh,
witnessed in the US.
mm.
Because
Wow.
here, because like you said, you went to lower income neighborhoods and all of that. You see, those neighborhoods are more supportive of each other. You can see
Ah,
that they never close their front door. Everyone's kids are playing with everyone. Everyone's keeping an eye.
totally.
It's so
Yeah.
beautiful to witness
Mm,
that. And
mm,
the utter isolation and I witnessed when I was in the US, I was really shocked because I saw that, and of course, the US is very different from Sweden, right? Because they don't, the US doesn't have the same kind of government support that Sweden provides. They don't have the
Mm,
same kind of support. So I could see that they were literally living from paycheck to paycheck. Like it was, just one paycheck away from like homelessness. And it was really
mm,
scary to see that, because
mm.
who has your back if you can't make it this? Like, what if you fell ill? What happens? So it makes me wonder, like why India, how India works, even if we have our issues.
Yeah,
uh, we seem to also have something that seems to work.
definitely. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Um,
something I realized because before I moved to India, I read a lot on the internet from other people who have been living there or are living there right now, and on their like vlogs or whatever
yeah.
they put up on the internet, and so many people wrote like when they have been living there for 3, 4 months, they got into quite a deep depression,
Mhm.
and oh, it's nothing like home. No, it's not.
Mm.
And it helped me to read those lines, because then I didn't need to get so deep in my, I wouldn't say depressions, but oh, this is not working. And oh
Mm.
God, if people say 5 minutes in India, you don't know how long time that is. It could mean days, but okay, get get used to it. Get used to it.
I love
And
how
it's
you
so
said if you say 5 minutes in India, it could be days. That's so funny, because Bangalore, genuinely, the traffic is, you can't trust the traffic.
no,
I'm
no, no,
so
no, no, no.
glad we by the time we started hanging out, the metro was up and running, and I would
Mm,
just take the metro to meet you.
mm,
Remember, I just take the metro to
mm.
meet everyone. So everything is around the metro station. Yeah.
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 So it's but it if the ones who are watching this don't misjudge me, because I love India, and it has taught me so much about myself and the people and the country. It's an amazing country, and what's also amazing is the work that you do. If we'll touch upon that one, the
Yeah.
constellation work.
Yeah.
You introduced me a bit about the constellation work, and I tried it twice, and it both of the times it's like, oh, this is so when people are talking about everything happens for a reason, everything happens at the right time, that's so obvious when it comes to this constellation work, because at that time, both of the times, I had a very specific question to work with, and the result was quite amazing.
Mm.
Just a couple of, maybe 1 or 2 months afterwards, it's just like everything's changed
Yeah. Yeah.
within the question.
Yeah. I mean, it's powerful because in constellation work, it's uh, it's the power of your intention. It's
Mm,
it's your heart's longing, how deeply, how powerfully, how ready you are, that you
yeah.
showed up, and your heart's longing. Because when the co-founder Bert Hellinger used to do group work
Mm,
before, he would like they had their own system, but whoever's longing was the strongest in the room,
mm,
somehow
mm.
they would get picked.
Ah,
So even when I went to train with my teacher, Annie Karyappa, she also would do group workshops, right? We used to do in person just before the pandemic hit. Um, we would all pick a word, and there was a number. She had a word number system, something I don't remember exactly. And we'd
mm,
all put that in the basket, and we pick a number. And it just,
mm,
in the group, while I'm sitting there,
mm.
before I pick it, I would know it would be me, because my intention is that strong today. And if it's not, I almost feel like, oh, it's, and somebody else who's stronger intention will get picked.
Mm,
It's so interesting, because I feel um, that's why I've never really had to talk about this work, or like to advertise it, or to like talk,
mm,
like to educate people about it, because
mm,
whoever is longing for it will just show up. And that itself for me is, I'm just so stunned by this. I shouldn't be surprised, but it's so interesting. Yeah, and also
mm,
the for you, Henry, the way it was your longing that brought you, and also your readiness.
mm.
Yeah, yeah,
I agree. And also,
yeah,
when you talk about the longing,
hmm,
for me, it has also been
yeah,
not only because that's from my perspective and my experience is that when
yeah,
people want to change,
yeah,
when they want to change, not everyone, but most
yeah,
people, we are not trained to tell what kind of result we are longing for.
mm,
What we are taught to kind of or are
mm,
kind of is that, oh, I want to get rid of something. Oh, I
mm,
don't want to feel the pain. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to have that person in my life. I don't want to
mm,
have this, whatever it is. But for me,
yeah,
and I don't know if that's what you are referring to when you say longing. For me, it's the most important thing is to say, what kind of result do I want instead? Well, if I
yeah,
don't have this pain, how does it feel then? If I don't have this heartache, how do I feel then?
yeah,
Or how do I want to feel?
yeah,
What's so
yeah,
that's at least for me the result, the end result is that
yeah.
that's what I'm longing for. Is that something that?
Oh, yeah. No, that's what you just touched upon is so important, because that's the initial interview part of it, right? Because
Mm,
when somebody comes in, what is your intention? You say, okay, so if you didn't have that, what would you want? Because somebody says, I don't want this back pain anymore. If you
ah,
didn't have it, what would you want? And then you see, then your energy is aligned in that way.
mm,
Of course, I don't mean to sound very esoteric, like, oh, your energy is aligned and this and that. You know how how sort of precise and specific it is,
mm,
but even my teacher Annie is also trained in neuro-linguistic programming. So it's how you word things, how you say something is
mm,
really, really powerful. Um, and then also when we do in systemic work, in constellation work, the facilitator is in touch with the language of the soul. That's why how the words come out.
mm,
And you can't really teach someone that. Initially we would have like a list of things. We'd say, okay, maybe, my colleagues and I would like try, okay, maybe we should. But that's not how it is when you're in the
mm,
field. And I
mm,
know you saw, and in fact, it's so interesting. You are so present with that, because even
mm,
the way you were present, you knew what to say.
mm.
The way it comes through, the language that comes through. So it is important.
Yeah, but that
Um,
is also that's also a part. I have been practicing.
mm,
It doesn't come all it I mean, if you have met me 10, 15 years ago, then that would not have come so natural. But
yeah,
now I have this language. What do I long for? What kind of result do I
yeah,
long for? So it has taken me time to
yeah,
conquer it. Is that the word?
yeah, yeah, and conquer it, yes, but I realize that you're translating. This is not your mother tongue, so
No.
and English is not my mother tongue either. So we have to find a middle ground. But what I'm acknowledging that, because that's very important. Because mother tongue, everything rolls differently.
Yep.
But yes, I think being aware of, there's so much of intentional groundwork that has gone into now Henry, the way Henry shows up, right? That's why you're ready for this work or
Yeah.
any work. It's
Mm,
the same for
mm,
me, like, and I
mm,
completely resonate with what you said, right? It took me so many years and it's still work in progress, however, but
mm,
there are these little stepping stones, like they say in compassion inquiry, we call it stepping
mm,
stones. Everything we learn is a stepping stone. So for me, it's been like, okay, I need to learn how to use language, which I probably had to practice for like, because my first workshop in neuro-linguistic programming was when I was 20 years old, I think, 19 or
mm,
20.
mm,
So it's, long ago. And I think it's like laying the ground of like building, even to get to a point where you can understand or deepen something, you need to do a lot of groundwork. I think that's what you
mm,
were mentioning when you said
mm, mm.
um,
Correcta.
it's well, if I didn't even know where I was going. All
No,
those
but
years.
exactly because this was something I was sitting and uh, pondering about how
Yeah.
what kind of person you were when we met 2015 and up till today, 2024. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, huge
I,
difference.
I know. And you're saying that, Henry. You met me in
Yeah.
2015. So
Ah,
someone I met in 2018, a very
ah,
dear now colleague of mine,
mm.
also a therapist, coach, healer. She met me in 2018 in person, and even she had the same thing to say. She's like, Madhura, you have changed. So, and I was like, oh my God, was I so bad before? No, but you know
Mm.
what? I know what you mean. Um,
I
I
mean, also,
think, yeah,
a lot of things comes also with the age. I mean,
yes,
you soon is your
yeah,
birthday. I don't want to
yes.
reveal your age, but
It's okay. I think everyone, but anyway, let's not talk about the age.
no,
But yes,
no.
it is, I feel, I read something recently where, we mammals do mature with age. Like it's a
Mm,
very automatic thing.
mm,
Um, so I feel like that's also got a huge role in why I have, grown into, or why all of us grow into something more whole. We
mm,
grow into ourselves. I feel we grow into ourselves with time. However, I feel in that natural process, when, like, for me personally, I feel like I've also had the grace of being taught by teachers who made
mm,
me who I am. For me, I
mm,
don't think there's a single day that I go by where I am not in deep gratitude of all the teachers I have met. Not just the teachers who have come from lineages, who have taught
mm,
me specific trainings, but all the teachers in my life.
mm.
Even the ones who didn't look like teachers, who
Yep.
were really
Yep.
not, didn't seem like teachers, but have been. I think you would resonate with that as well. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
5 minutes becomes days. I mean,
yeah,
getting
yeah,
learn patience, for example. And you said something about you mentioned this about that we have been away from each other. It has been quiet for years, sometimes 1 year or
yeah,
a month in between, and we have gotten back and explored where are we, how are
yeah,
we doing, what's happening, and even though so much has happened for both of us along the way, it's like, I mean, for some, this is the difference. If one of us, my experience at least,
mm,
is that if one of us would not have been able to develop
mm,
as a person, we might not have followed each other all the way.
mm.
Do you understand what I mean with that?
Yes, yes,
And
I
now
do.
it's like
Yeah,
we're walking and talking, but maybe
yeah,
and with this distance, and also it's like it's has been so interesting to follow you on your road at the same time as I'm, if you use the word
yeah,
develop.
yeah. And
And I
growing,
think,
there's a growth
yeah,
and deepening. Yeah,
and I think that has been one of the.
Yeah.
one of the reasons why it has been so good
Yeah,
to
I
follow.
absolutely agree with you. And you said it so well. You said the walking and talking. And I feel like we've been walking and talking together since 2015. You know?
Yeah.
I think something else worked out for me is that our expectations were very clear from each other, that we didn't have that expectation of like,
Mm,
you better grow with me, or you better grow with me, or you better
mm,
keep in touch with me, or
mm,
it was never there. And I don't know
mm,
why, but it wasn't there. And,
mm,
I don't know, it's just that, there was this unspoken resonance and agreement that happened, that we said, okay, so this is how it's going to be.
mm,
And I have a few friendships like these, which, and in some friendships, I've not heard from somebody for almost 2 years, and
mm.
like really, like they were unreachable. Like I couldn't even like get through to them. Like I was like, are they alive or not? It was that level. But then they come back, and it's just like we're just walking and talking together again.
Mm. Oh.
And it's so precious, because as we grow older, and as I'm like, I know I'm not very old, but as I'm
No.
growing older, I just feel like nothing really is. It's not, all these seemingly important things are not important. This is important, that
Mm,
we find our way back to connect together, and we have this precious time when we are present for each other. And what else is more important? I feel like that's the gift. That's like the friendship itself is the gift. There's nothing else
mm,
more that I can expect or want from this connection.
mm. Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, all the hardship that you have been through without mentioning any specific things, it's
yeah,
like it's been which word do I choose? I would even say inspiring, because you have been conquering and you've been doing you have followed your heart, I would say, probably, even though what you've been through, and then that has also rewarded you, I assume, that you are in the where you are today.
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for acknowledging it with such beauty. I would say the same for you. I feel like what you have been through also, in your life, and knowing the some of the things that you've shared with me, I
Mm,
feel the same way, and it is also inspiring for me. And it's such a mutual respect in that sense.
mm, mm,
Uh, and you're right. It's really, I have followed my heart.
mm,
And it has been a pay, because this year, Henry, when the new year happened, the first few days there was this all pervasive. I mean, it's a thought, but I wouldn't say it's a thought, because it was a feeling in my body, where I
mm,
would wake up every day thinking, if even one thing in my life had gone differently, I wouldn't be here today.
mm, mm.
Um, and I honestly wouldn't change a thing. I can't believe I'm saying that, because
Yep,
the things that have happened.
yep.
I just wouldn't. And I was like, wow, is this even possible?
Mm,
Say, if I were to speak about it in very clinical terms, is I would say my nervous system has healed. I have built enough inner resilience, and I would have a lot of words, but
yes.
there's something else, isn't there?
Oh yeah.
There's a larger life force that carries us all through it, and we are here now.
Mm,
Yeah,
hallelujah.
yeah. Oh, this is so wonderful. So I'm just wondering.
Yes.
I feel like this is a beautiful close for today.
Yep.
And I want to thank you for giving me the time and space to do this today.
Namaskar.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me. It's
Yeah.
been a Pleasure.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank you.